The Daily Code Snippet. A few episodes back, we discussed the history of CSS. CSS1 was released in 1995, and CSS2 was released in 1997. Browser support of CSS drove development, and there was fierce competition between the browser developers that led to an inconsistency in what CSS was supported. So this is a key reason why web designers must spend time testing cross-browser compatibility. We must make sure our websites will display comparably on various devices, operating systems, and browsers. CSS3 was released in 1999, and its development is ongoing. Older browsers may not support all CSS3 code. When a CSS property does not display as expected, it is referred to as a browser quirk or CSS bug. So when you encounter a problem with your style and you determine it is not an issue with your code, it may actually be a compatibility issue. There are websites that compile these browser quirks and CSS bugs that you can reference to see if a problem has been seen before and if a workaround has been developed. One can also search for a particular property and you can find out the browser support for that property. It may be a property supported by Google Chrome but not just supported by Apple Safari. It may be that you haven't updated your browser and a newer browser would support that property. Here is an example of a chart you may find about a CSS property or value. This is from Mozilla's developer site, and it is showing a browser compatibility chart for the value revert for inheritance. Revert is not supported by Internet Explorer or Samsung Internet. However, there is a note to look at the implementation notes to get more information. The numbers presented in the chart show the version of the browser that now supports revert. So you would need Google Chrome 84 or later for revert to be supported. The current release is Google Chrome 91. As mentioned before, cross-browser compatibility is the process by which we make sure our code works across multiple devices, platforms, and browsers. Since different browsers support CSS code in different ways, one way to help resolve this issue is to use a CSS reset. This is a set of CSS rules that resets the styling of all HTML elements to the same baseline. When we were looking at the table of contents in a CSS style sheet a few episodes ago, you may recall that one of the first sections of code in that style sheet was normalize. This is an example of a CSS reset. Normalize.css is a set of CSS rules that sets browsers to a baseline of modern standards and is an open source code on GitHub. Another way to make sure your code works on particular browsers is to use conditional comments. This was a common practice when it was necessary to support Internet Explorer, which tended to be the most problematic. These days, we would only need to support Internet Explorer if we knew our target audience is likely to have an older system using this browser. To target all Internet Explorer browsers, you would enclose your code in these comments. HTML, if IE, your code, and if /HTML. To target Internet Explorer 6, we would use this conditional comment code instead. HTML, if IE6, your code, and if /HTML. Vendor prefixes are used to make sure to target particular browsers that may not yet be keeping up with W3C standards and the latest CSS3 releases. These are the vendor prefixes for the most popular browsers. -MOZ- for Mozilla Firefox, -MS- for Internet Explorer, -O- for Opera, -WebKit- for Safari and Chrome. Finally, we would run our code through an HTML and CSS validator. There are free options available, and these will validate or make sure your code is correct. We will be alerted if we have syntax or any other errors so that we can fix them prior to releasing our code for wide use. Presented by Designers Learn Code.